Madison, Wisconsin. I feel like that's a place where I've always wanted to do more stories on, but it always kind of slips away from me. I see lots of argy-bargy, lots of bad business, home invasions, robberies, killings, and I always think, well, every time I'm ready to do something on it, something else pops up, and it just slips away from me. Remember I did a talk show in Madison with one of the local network affiliates out there, and as we're going on, about 5 minutes into it, I realized this doesn't seem to be your typical network affiliate talk radio station. I'm not getting the questioning, even though I'm coming in with lots of facts, lots of specifics. I'm not getting the questioning. I'm not getting the skepticism. I'm not getting the open disagreement. No, I'm just getting a guy going and about 5 minutes in, he goes, yeah, that happened to my son in Madison. He just went to a parade and, just a bunch of black people came up and beat the piss out of him. And so anyway, and by the way, there's lots of black mob violence in Madison too. Anyway, so I saw a story in the paper, a video in the paper this morning in the media this morning in Madison. And it talked about the local district attorney and the sheriff. They're talking about people in crisis because of the crime in Madison. I thought, oh, great, this would be a great time to kind of get into Madison. So I did a little, click, 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 click. And all of a sudden, I come up with what I was looking for. I wanted to see if anybody broke down the crime in Madison along racial lines. So Madison is 7% black. Now, Madison, you remember, it's about 200,000 people. Huge liberal city. It's a college town, state capital. That's two strikes against it. Madison reminds a lot of people, and me too, of Berkeley. I mean, it's where liberalism is glorified, elevated, never questioned, but lots of surprisingly nasty business going on in Madison. I think Berkeley's even worse. So anyway, it turns out that in Madison, 70, 80, 90% of the crime, violence, murder, home invasions, robberies, burglaries, they're all by the fellas. And fellas are arrested at 10 times the rate of white people in Madison. I think the number we saw is like 1 out of 4 fellas are arrested last year in Madison every year. That seems like too big of a number. I don't know. But we know that 10 times more black people are arrested in Madison. That's why I thought I was going to be kind of happy to see this story about the DA in Madison cracking down, going to do something. They're in crisis. Until I figured out when he talks about people in crisis, he's not talking about the victims of the crime. He's talking about the criminals.
County leaders say jail time might not always be the best option.
Tonight, unveiling plans to move into the planning stages to build a new restorative justice facility in the city. Gabriela Becerra has the story.
Dane County District Attorney Ishmael Ozan says restorative justice begins by getting down to the root cause of what drives the behavior in the criminal justice system in addressing crisis, which he says requires judgment, forward thinking, and thoughtfulness.
We really have to start thinking about how can we help people in crisis.
And that's where Dane County District Attorney Ishmael Ozan says a community justice center would be beneficial.
And actually, I think it would be incredible if we could get a community justice center, because I believe that would put positive structure in and around our youth and help us get a better ability to address juvenile issues that we're seeing right now in our community.
Ozan says a center would impact the entire system, making it easier to connect people with resources.
It could be an incredible place for some public-private partnerships in and around mental health, in and around homelessness.
As we look at really the crime spree that is taking over our communities now with the stolen vehicles and home break-ins, we need to look at who these individuals are and what's driving those behaviors and try to address it.
Dane County Sheriff David Mahoney says he supports Ozan's cutting-edge approach to restorative justice.
We've been partners trying to find a smarter way of addressing our criminal justice system, more so than just locking people up.
If we could do something there to then find a permanent place in the community for them and use that as sort of an emergency, taking somebody out of crisis, we would get them to a better place and we would be better for it.
Tonight's event also doubled as a birthday celebration for Ozan, where he announced he will be running for re-election. He was appointed as district attorney back in 2010.
Now admit it, if I told you two major law enforcement officers in a major American city believes that criminals are the ones in crisis when they commit a crime and not the victims. Did you hear anybody talk about the victims in those two interviews? Anybody mention them once? No. If I told you that, would you have believed me? You might have said, well, Colin, you're pretty good on this stuff, but I think you probably exaggerated on that, because no, it can't be true. They can't be talking about criminals as the one having the problems instead of the criminals causing the problems. But that's exactly what they have in Madison. So Madison, let's face it, is not the most dangerous city in the world with only 7% black people there, but it's one of the most dangerous cities in Wisconsin. The crime in Madison is consistently 25, 30, 35, 40% greater than the crime rate in the rest of the state. And now we have a district attorney going around saying we're going to do restorative justice. We're going to put the fellas back on the streets so they can go coach Little League, so they could be mentors, so they could become astronauts, and they can tell other peoples how to tell other little fellas how to become a success in their lives. Yes, people who believe in restorative justice believe that because they believe there are too many black people in prison for no reason whatsoever, thus depriving the community of a valuable resource. And that's why the neighborhoods are in such bad shape. There's Madison. That's that attitude in Madison writ large. But it's not just Madison, but I like it when we see a really clear explanation of it, because this is happening all over the country now. All these district attorneys have somehow figured out that they know what the law is better than the people who make the laws. Isn't that weird? Like the district. Okay, so when you're a district attorney, I get it. You have to focus on some crimes and not the others because you can't, you have limited resources, unlimited number of crimes. But boy, the thing with district attorneys now is they just feel like they are writing the law. They get to decide who's breaking the law and who's not. They get to decide what's serious and what's not. Now, all of a sudden, he's going around to people talking, the crime in Madison is spiking. No, it's not an uptick. It's a spike.
Please, sir. I want some more.
And all they can talk about is patting the little fellas on the head and making sure we don't put them in jail, making sure we don't criminalize them. Good Lord, crime is the new black entitlement. That's his re-election slogan. And now he's got the sheriff of Madison walking around holding hands, making plans with this guy. I don't see how this turns out well. Unless, of course, your definition of something turning out well is not making the black kids angry.